Well, it's my pleasure to record with Kevin Eustace again. Kevin, how are you doing?
Not too bad, Chris. Thanks. You okay?
Yeah, excellent, thank you. I just listened to your recent episode of Dark Paranormal, Katie's Room,
Oh, yes.
the one I listened to. You must hear loads and loads of stories all year round and read things that you don't put out on the Dark Paranormal
Yeah,
podcast.
100%.
Have you started to see themes, clusters of, oh, that's like this, that's like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Patterns.
Do you mean it in a positive or negative or just interesting way?
Well, I suppose there's a bunch of stories where people see a shadow at the foot of their bed. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
stories where it's footsteps only. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Clusters.
No, there's interesting, arguably the most interesting sort of, because as you know yourself, the, you know, within a haunted house sort of story, you're going to get, and this is the thing, because it's a world no one knows the truth of. It could be opening and shutting of doors, slamming of whatevers, and throwing of
Mm.
things, poltergeist activity. It might just be the norm, So although it could appear repetitive in terms of the action, if you hear any meows in the background, I've got a very um, needy cat, aren't you? Um, just walked out with a cob on. But basically, yeah, so we don't know what the criteria is, or whether it even comes with a level of intelligence that you gain on the other side if we're living in the world of spirit that's passed on. Like, for
Mm.
example, we were just talking about navigating YouTube and recording systems and stuff.
Yeah.
And as you rightly said, that's stuff you learn as you go. So therefore, your knowledge about how to navigate YouTube, record a video, you'll know much more than I do about that topic. Maybe it works the same in the spirit world. Maybe if you're an entry level ghost, so to say, you learn how to slam a door to get attention.
Mm.
Um, Maybe then when you've done not necessarily some sort of qualification, but maybe when you figure out things, you've been around long enough, you can do other things. Mimicry is a one that seems to have cropped up because there is, and because the show's been going 5 or 6 years now. Um, Obviously, we're on just started season 21, 10 episodes per season, each focusing on an individual story. So there's over 200 individual stories there. And so it's kind of, there are sort of patterns that come along. For example, the Shadow Man peaked and troughed. Um, the what mimicry seems to be quite big now in terms of people hearing their own voice, which is an interesting one. But the most interesting one in terms of, I have this thing on the Patreon show because the Patreon show is a bit more laid back.
Mm.
Because for the main show, the story needs to be at least 30 minutes in length. Otherwise, because it's only one experience, sorry, supposed to story per show. Whereas I get a lot which are 10 minutes. And I either can't use them or use them as a mini-sode. So I'll string some of them together for a Dark Bites episode to make that a 30-minute show for Patreons. And a few months, it was before Christmas, maybe. Um, it was within the last 12 months anyway. I received, because I kind of at that point was working back and just reading through and thinking, okay, that looks about 5 minutes. Yes, that's about 10 minutes. Yes. And I think over the course of two episodes, it was the weirdest thing because it's rare, as you'll know yourself, if you're into the paranormal. It's strange when somebody tells you about something that you haven't heard, in terms of the Shadow Man,
Yeah.
poltergeist activity, something ESP, whatever.
Yeah.
You think you've heard it all really when you've been into it for 40 years or whatever. And there was an email from Hong Kong, and this person said, basically, very in a very brief email, they said, I know we're all aware of the black-eyed kids, but I'm being terrorized by the red-eyed kids. And I was like, okay. So I was reading through it, and I have this thing which I call validators. In when I'm reading through stories, it's kind of something to know the bull from something genuine. So, for example, I mentioned it today in a show I recorded. I was reading from a website, and it was about haunted items for sale. Um, and there was a picture. that was for sale that was allegedly haunted. But the seller said within the what you get if you buy this haunted painting, it said you'll get like eerie sensations, you'll hear voices, and then it said and birdsong and things like that. I call validators because if you're making something up, that wouldn't enter your brain. You know, if you're doing a classic, I'm going to write a ghost story and pretend it's real, and you're choosing just three things in a very short paragraph of what this item does, birdsong wouldn't be in it. Do you know what I mean? It would be
Yeah.
like um, poltergeist activity. You get dragged down the stairs. You have nightmares. You know
Yeah, shadow people or think bad luck. Sort
exactly.
of
Yeah,
thing, yeah.
yeah, but not birdsong. So I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that. So I love these sorts of validator things. So anyway, red-eyed kids. Um, this lady had said she knows when she's going to be attacked, as she called it, because she will see them firstly in dreams. This group of two or three kids with red eyes, and they'll just follow her about in a dream. They won't say a word, and then she'll wake up with sleep paralysis, and they'll have come from the dream world into her room, and they're not on a chest or anything like old hag syndrome. They're in the room with her.
Yeah.
Um, and when she slowly comes out of a sleep paralysis, they're still there, and it takes about 5 or 10 minutes of her laying in absolute fear and shock for them to slowly dissipate.
Mm.
And when I read that story out about 2 weeks later, a woman from Australia emailed in and said, I haven't got a story. I just want to let you know I'm experiencing the exact same thing as the woman from Hong Kong.
Right.
Red-eyed kids coming through, see, follow me in dreams. When I wake, I'm paralyzed. They're in the room. I then come out of my paralysis and want in front of the door. I don't move. I can't scream. And slowly they dissipate. And I was like, whoa, that's because, especially to get in touch, and because this person who emailed in knew because of how I request people submit their experiences. She knew I wasn't going to read out her email
Mm.
because there was no story attached. Um, and it was just that really got me because I was like, you're continents apart. And well, I suppose not necessarily. Hong Kong's quite close to Australia, really. But you know what I mean? It's like you
Yeah.
don't know each other, you're in different countries, you're experiencing the same phenomena. Um, so that one really got me in terms of like, what is that? You know, that's for me is something that's been validated by a third party who isn't in the same country. And that's happened quite a few times. I used to have an office in the city centre when I lived in the city centre where I do my recording from. And there was, at that time, as I say, it's different now. I've got a very, very, very small team who will put together the stories for Dark Bites for me. And I prefer it that way because I'm reading it first when I'm
Yes.
recording it.
Yeah,
So,
live.
yeah, so I give my authentic reaction. And the dynamic of it's changed a lot because it means if something like there was an experience literally recorded one today, and the woman who'd emailed in had three experiences which all kind of melded into one, and the final part of that experience was such a twist that even I mid-read like had to pause. I had to edit that part because I was as they say in the UK, I was agog. I was literally,
Bit of dead
um,
air.
yeah, it was like I needed to compose myself. And at the end, when it was giving me like summation of it, I was kind of, I really can't. And in a nutshell, because it's no spoilers for anyone who they'll have listened to it by now or
Yeah.
will listen to it through the week. Um, she went through a really bad time. She had like her husband cheated on her, blah blah blah. And she was really depressed. And she was asking, although she wasn't religious, she was asking God for help. She had like some weird, kind of vivid dream of visitation, and she was very descriptive about this. Sounded like an angel, but it was all black, and when its wings were moving independently, which wouldn't assume flight. You know, it was kind of it shouldn't have been able to stay in the air with the way it was moving.
Mm.
And when it was flapping its wings, kind of like cinder was falling from them. And then she was in another place where this guardian angel said, "I'll have you back," sort of thing. Um, and then she said she went on a dog walk with her dad and thought, should I tell him like about what's been going on? She went, because he's always had me back. I've always been the apple of his eye. Or will he think I'm mad? So she told him, and he said, well, I believe you. I know what you've been going through. Um, and basically gave her support and said, it'll all be okay. And the end of the story, her psychiatrist, because she was that down, I'd paid her a house visit and she was with her mum. And her mum went out to make tea, and the psychiatrist asked about her support system of family, friends, etc. And she said, yeah, I've got some really good friends. I recently confided in my dad about certain things because she didn't want to tell a psychiatrist what she'd seen because she thought she'd be locked up, basically.
Mm.
Uh, and he was like, okay, brilliant. And as her mum's just come in with the tea, and the psychiatrist says, it's really good that you've got that relationship with your dad, that you can tell him what you're going through at the moment. And the mother then corrected the psychiatrist and said, the dad's been dead 20 years. And I literally just stopped like not stopped recording, it was still recording, but
Mm.
I just did not see it coming.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't, you could tell through how the language used and the emotion she was like putting across. Um, it wasn't a twist for twist's sake. Do you know what I mean? It was a clearly, at that time, emotionally damaged person
Mm.
who was going through a hell of a lot. And she completely admits to that at the end, like, but it's so interesting when you get things like that because the reason I kind of got this small team to do that for me, and it's basically I asked them to make sure it's not blatantly fake, make sure there's a validator in there if there is, and then create an episode. It doesn't need to be themed, just needs to be 30 minutes. I said, and then it's renewed my passion for the paranormal and for
Mm.
podcasting too, because as you'll know, and many people may not, my first podcast was We Need to Talk About Ghosts, which was very tongue in cheek, but in my eyes, it went a bit too far the other way. So there's two. I mean, I'm me as a human being. I like to have a laugh. I like to have a joke, as everyone does. But there's also a serious side to me, like there is with everyone else. So if you're into football, for argument's sake, I'm not personally, but if you are, you can have a laugh and a joke about football, but then you'll sit there in a pub with your mates and get into a really serious, heated debate about football. Now, I'm like that with ghosts or the paranormal. Uh, I can see the funny side in ghost stories if it's stupid or if someone's blatantly lying or they've mistook something. Um, but at the same time, there's a real, there's the me that sits there for 5 or 6 hours a week reading whatever book I can get my hand on or about anything new, trying to absorb any more knowledge. And I have done since it was like 7. And it felt like with the first show, I thought that if I entered a room with people of note, in the paranormal field, podcasting wise, they'd be like, well, he hasn't got a clue. And I thought, I actually do. It's just that part of me is the humorous part.
Mm.
Um, and then I started doing both at the same time because I thought the part of me was sitting there reading ghost stories for 6, 7 hours a week and watching whatever documentaries I can get my hands on. He doesn't exist in the podcasting world or in people's minds, And I thought, I want to do that. I want to let people know that I don't think it's a joke. I think it crossed the line a bit sometimes. And I wanted to like let it be known. I do believe I've been into it for 40 years. I'm not jumping on a bandwagon. Um, it's a thing which I think on the topic daily. I've got a book of theories, which when I say theories, I've got a book of potential, well, yeah, theories, I suppose, or different ideas about what may cause X, may cause Y, that I've just worked through for about 2 years. I'm going to say book. I don't. I mean, I'm talking scrapbook. I don't mean like,
Yeah, yeah,
chapter 1, chapter 2. I'm
yeah.
talking like my scrolled writing EVP, and then like maybe these frequencies, da, 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 da. And then
Mm-hmm.
because I've got a spirit box and a white noise generator and all that, I'll then spend 2 hours messing around with that idea and then writing down didn't work or whatever. It's
Yeah.
normally didn't work if it's an experiment, but so yeah, that's why the Dark Paranormal now exists, and because also, sorry to keep rambling on, but it was the reason for the Dark Paranormal trying to focus on the darker side of the paranormal was something that was spoke about during towards the end of We Need to Talk About Ghosts as a podcast. And it was the fact, and it is true, and anyone watching or listening will know it's true, that if you're in work and you go for a coffee, be in the coffee room or whatever, or the water cooler or whatever, and somebody comes in and says, "Oh, guess what happened last night? I was lying in bed, and I lost my dog 2 months ago. Well, I felt a little paws jump onto the bed and snuggle right next to me. And everyone in there, being a skeptic or a believer, will go, ah, and go, how lovely is that? How warm is that? And they'll go on about it, and they won't think any less of the person. They won't think they're a lunatic. They won't think this, that, or the other. And my argument in that particular episode was, you can't have one without the other. Somebody in there should then be able to say, "Ah, that's a lovely story. Last night I was grabbed by the throat and thrown down the stairs by something I couldn't see." Because everyone in there would go, "You're a lunatic."
Mm.
We'll allow little puppy dogs, ghosts, but we won't allow anything nastier than that, because that's clearly you just being insane. And that's why I wanted to do the very early shows of the Dark Paranormal. I think I say, if you're looking for stories about ghost dogs that have come back to say hello, you're not going to find them on here, because
Yeah.
the point of the show is to let people know you should be afraid of the paranormal. You know, they're not there to try and make friends with you. They're not there just
Mm.
to say, Betty, it's like when mediums say they've brought you a rose. Funny that, because there must be nothing but roses in heaven or hell or wherever, because every medium at the end, and they've brought you a rose. It's like, Christ, there must be no roses left.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so yeah, so that's the main crux of it, is to find the darkest stories that are sent in. We get a few hundred each season, and we read through them and say, right, what is the most believable darkest story that's in here? And some of them are more darker on the human side of things than the spirit world, but that's the point of the show.
Yeah. Well, you come from an element of we both read spirit stuff from about the same age. I ended up trying to see if I could have those experiences, and you ended up absorbing yourself in further stories. I tried to convince you to do a Ouija board, and I don't think I ever got you to do one.
No, I've done like in me between the ages of maybe 13 and 17. I
Mm.
must have done about 400 solo Ouija boards.
Right, or you did, but not
Yeah, yeah.
recently, not in your adult
Not you know
skeptical
what?
life.
Not in my adults. I'm not as skeptical as I may come across. I'm literally looking right now at something I ordered the other day,
Yeah.
which is a divination set. I bought this from Amazon the other day. Yet to use it, but it is basically
Oh yeah.
with
Yep. You put your pendulum
thingy
over it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try and when I do it, I haven't got around to doing it yet, because I wanted to try and rule out any sort of idiomotor
Mm.
effects. But that's the thing with the idiomotor effect as well. It's that you it's proven it's an idiomotor effect on the Ouija board. But who's controlling the subliminal side of yourself? You know that's driving the engine. It is you pushing it undoubtedly, unless of course your all hands are off and then it's some sort of paranormal poltergeist-esque activity. But I still think that it's still possible that you can be pushing it, but you're not in control of your own subconscious.
Mhm.
So you're not the driver of the train, so to speak, although it's your train.
Can I chip in here?
Yeah, yeah. Please do, because I'm just
We
rabbiting.
we have done the Ouija board for 14 years, and through blindfold experiments, you don't have a blindfold on, it can spell out what you want, or go to areas, colours on the board which you want it to. You cover people's eyes up, and suddenly it can't. I also had to come to, I have to say, it is us. It is us. But then the next hurdle was the information that comes through that we don't know. We didn't know. And then you see in the newspaper, or you can find out. And it's not just like a piece, it's like whole wealth of information from the night, what seems gobbledygook, gets proven with an article. And that, as they say, blows us away. Now, it doesn't matter to me that we were moving it. They were influencing, using us as a vessel, because we all have spirits in us. You've got a spirit in you right now. I have in me. So the fact that we push it is old hat now. I'm like, yeah, no, we push it.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's steering us towards the information? Where's that coming from? It doesn't have to be spirits. It could be some sort of telepathy, some sort of something we haven't tapped into, which we're all confusing as ghosts. But yeah, the idiomotor effect is also delayed. Everyone seems to skip over that bit. That you can do it without knowing you're doing it, because you're all slightly, leaning. Is there a spirit here? It's not going to go to no. It's weighted to
exactly,
yes, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can go to no, but
but the irony of it going to no, because it's like,
yeah, it's all right.
Who's done that then?
Yeah. So yeah, that used to trouble me when I got to. Will I ever realise it is us? But they were like, no, we use you.
Exactly, yeah. That you're the tool. I said the same sort of thing to. I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day about magic and about intent magic, basically, sigil magic specifically. And I was saying,
like spells, you mean?
Well, not necessarily spells. Intent. Well, no, again, no.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, because I've done 2 spells in my life, right? Both have worked. Now, I won't go into the detail. Well, I'll go into one of them. One of them was I was in a very abusive relationship I wanted out of, and it was a physically abusive relationships, and there was no obvious way out of it. And I googled. I didn't just Google and went to the first spell and went I was like no, because again, you get a sense for what's nonsense and what's not, and it led me down a very dark path to the point where I'm like, I hope my browser's not getting checked here. But I ended up on this site. I'm going back over 15 years, can't recall the site, but what I read of this spell, I was like, I can see why that would happen. There was a bit of logic behind what it was saying to do, and it was more, as most spells, actual spells are, it was more about intent. Mm-hmm. Now, I was explaining this to my mate. So we carried out the spell as it was said to do, and the relationship was over in 2 weeks. Now, but the thing is, there's always cause and effect. So it was over, but it didn't end in a way that I would have sooner. But it was over. Mm-hmm. It worked. Now, me and my mate had a very good chat about this, and we were saying, okay, so what if I, with the intent, with how the spell was carried out, that process caused subliminal changes in me that allowed the end to happen? And it was nothing paranormal. It was all to do with my belief in the spell had caused subtle changes in me that allowed the end result. And I said, yeah, well, if that's the case, we still haven't figured out what that process is. And we very well we may live long enough to see the word magic be repurposed as something non-paranormal, something where it's the term of a process of complete nature where you can program your subconscious to act differently to get a desired result.
Yeah.
And it was just an interesting thing, similar to what you're saying there about, like, for example, when there's the arguments within, I know people in the paranormal community, not us, and just, the ones who believe in The Secret, etc. And yeah, I am saying that in a derogatory way, and I don't care because I do mean it. But the word quantum physics jumps to some paranormal people to and they've got no understanding of what they're talking about. That's what really gets me. It's like, I'm not saying I do at all, but I have read enough about it to know that when people say objects only exist when you look at them, it's like, it's not really, you're not really grasping what it is. It's like, so when people they get something new and fantastically interesting and as interesting as the paranormal and in that quantum physics is and quantum science, and they go there because we don't understand it, therefore it ties in with paranormal, and it's
Yeah,
like,
that's
no,
the missing piece. Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's not really anything to do with that. Uh, and so when you're talking about like the collective all gathering some future event knowledge, for example, and they do motor effect, something working through that collectively to deliver these messages, it kind of ties into some of the better believed now theories on the quantum level, that we're all made of an energy.
Hmm.
Um, a description I read recently was to think of the universe as a blanket of energy, and there are no individuals. It said we're all basically pulls in that blanket. And when you zoom out, you realize it's one big blanket. But when you zoom in, Chris is an individual, Kev's an individual, the cat's an individual, the door's an individual. But when you zoom out, it's all one big blanket of energy.
Hmm.
Now, when you think of it like that, if that is true, which they do believe now it is true, then it would make sense that there's something, again, similar to the intent, let's just call it magic, that sort of stuff, that you guys could sit together and sort of resonate your idiosyncronicities, if you will, and be able to communicate with information that, again, falling into the everything happens at once theory.
Hmm.
You're not necessarily predicting the future or seeing something from the future. You're getting information from somewhere in a way that you don't know how.
Yeah.
And we say Ouija board. Again, we attach a paranormal curve to it because we're not advanced enough, and I don't think we ever will be from a evolution point to know why that information's come through.
Yeah, people say about I wouldn't use a Ouija board because you don't know what you're inviting. I would say the same thing about sitting in a circle with your hands together and having the same intent
Yeah,
to communicate with the ghosts. Holding up a ghost meter is the same intent. You are emitting, I want to talk to ghosts right
yeah.
now. You know, I think it's the same thing, but
I agree. I mean, this thing here, this thing, the Ouija boards, tarot cards, the spirit boxes, it's divination.
yeah,
Divination is an attempt to contact the spirit world. But
mm,
Ouija boards have this reputation that you
yeah,
only get something bad through a Ouija board.
yeah,
Why? That's the human nonsense.
mm-hmm,
Because there are several reports of people who have had good stories. Or I didn't know this, interestingly. My dad was never one. He died last year, but he was never one for ghosts. My mum was, but she died much earlier. Um, and she's the reason I'm into ghosts, because we were into ghosts. They were into football. We were into
mm,
ghosts. Um, but my dad was never into ghosts at all. And we were at a family funeral a couple of years back. And my cousin, whose dad's funeral it was, my uncle, he said, "What are you doing now, Kev?" I said, "I'm paranormal podcasting." And he was like, "Oh, has your dad ever told you the story about the Ouija board he done with like Terry McElhinney, some guy, or I don't know?" Um, and I could see my dad's ears prick up in another conversation he was in, and
mm,
I was thinking, "No, and why hasn't he, knowing what to do?" So I
yeah,
was like, "No, he hasn't." So I'm like, "What's the story?" Like interrupting my dad's conversation. Um, and he said, "Oh, it's nothing." And he went, "My cousin's like, because my cousin's a lot older than me." He was like, "It's nothing. Didn't he tell your mate the date of his dad's death?" And so then my dad turns around and goes, "Right," like begrudgingly.
yeah,
What happened was we just made a board with some letters, went in the shed, we done it. He said, "All right, um, tell me when I'm going to die." He said, "It's spelt out, say the 13th of November."
mm,
Um, and he went, "Uwe, I best watch out." He said, and the 14th of November came and went, and he was fine. And then the next year, 13th of November, his dad died. Um, and my dad said, and we never bothered after that. And that was it. That's as much as you get from my dad. But
Yeah.
then interestingly, like I live in this house now. This is our family home that I now live in alone, well, with the cat.
Hmm.
And when we were emptying out all of my dad's stuff after his death last year, he was very immaculate, and his house was immaculate. It's not now, sadly. But one of the wardrobes we were emptying, there was like a pile of cufflinks, and a lot of them were dress cufflinks. You know what you get with a shirt when you buy the
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
So we were going like me and my two siblings and my brother and sister were like bin, 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 and right at the back there was a pair of gold cufflinks, and I knew they were old gold. You could just tell because I pressed my thumbnail in and it left a mark.
Hmm.
And this is before I'd seen the front of them. So I turned them round, and my dad and my two siblings are all Evertonians. I'm into no football, so I'm not bothered.
Nothing.
Yeah, so I turned it around and it had the Everton club badge, but from maybe 1970, hand painted on it. And I said, "These look like they're worth a few bob." I said, and also like they're clearly something special. Um, and I said, "Do you want them?" At the time, in all honesty, everyone was going through a little bit of trauma, a little bit of shock. So my sister was like, "No, just bin them the cufflinks." And I'm, "Yeah, but the gold." And I said to our Paul, "Do you want them?" And he went, "I'm not too fussed about them." At that exact moment, me and my sister, middle of the day, stood side by side. My brother's got this bin bag we're throwing stuff in. Two loud thuds came from inside the cupboard next to my sister.
Cool.
And there was nothing in it. We just emptied that one out and moved on to this one. And she literally gripped me arm. And my brother went, "What?" And we were like white faced and went, when I said, "Should we just bin them?" There was two knocks on the thing. And my brother, who again, no one's interested in the family in the paranormal other than me, he went one for yes, twice for no. And my sister went, "Give me them now." And it was so eerie, so weird. And again, it could have been next door dropping a Hoover, but I guess you'll never know. Just
Well, there's always that get out, no matter what story I tell you or you tell me. It happens in the moment, doesn't it? And even 2 days later, you say, it was it got me at the time, but maybe it was nothing. You just naturally go back to normal status quo of, yeah, it's probably nothing. But
I think you have to be for your own sanity. Especially touching on what I was saying before in terms of the amount that we don't know. Well, I don't think we are. Some people are or claim to be, and in truth, I don't think they truly are. Able to just go, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with something existing that can do whatever it wants to me and living in my house whenever it wants." And I like the example I think I've told you before, so I won't retell it massively. But me and my ex-girlfriend used to. I was convinced the flat was haunted. She wasn't. We were both in the kitchen one day, and we both watched as the tap turned itself on and moved to the right.
that's right. Yeah.
And I was overjoyed at the time because I was like, "There's evidence. That's evidence. I told you this place was haunted." And literally, a genuine welling up of proved you wrong. I am right. And she was just staring at it like in disbelief. And that lasted, my thrill lasted about 5 minutes because then it dawned on me, hold on, if you are right, there's something in this flat that can physically touch whatever it wants, whenever it wants. And that would include you and flinging you down the stairs. And my excitement turned to absolute fear in the quickest way possible, to the point where, because she'd stared for so long, she turned around and went, "I think it could be water pressure." And I went, "I think it could be too." Because the realization, or that, again, that curve of what we don't understand.
You backed off.
Yeah, too many people are wonderful. And no, they may say this on TV or on podcasts. "Oh, I'd love it if this." You wouldn't. I guarantee you wouldn't. And it's not even bravado. I think some people genuinely mean it, like I did when the tap turned on. First 5 minutes, complete bravado. We are haunted. There is a ghost in this house. Hooray for me.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, I'm thinking, shit, there's a ghost in the house.
And I've got to go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing. And it's like, for example, a story I covered recently, which I've known for years. It was a friend's, one of my best friend's sisters. it all centered around this chair, which in itself was kind of had a bad vibe around it, that they picked up secondhand. But their house, this Victorian house in Liverpool, which was broken up into flats, and they kind of bought it as a lot and tried to make it back into a house. Um, it had an entity in it which the kids called Scary Nanny, um, and she didn't like the my mate's sister because she dyed her hair red, and it allegedly, according to the medium who came round in the end, it was because she reminded her of someone who took something from her. And she also said she used to lock her kids in the basement, and not the basement, like a shoe cupboardy area.
Oh yeah.
And said, and she thinks your kids are her kids, and that's another reason why she doesn't like you. Um, and this medium apparently said there was two ghosts. One was a gentleman. He's gone. She isn't leaving. She's refused. Like, I can't get her to leave. He said, but what I can do is I can bind her so she can't bother you anymore. And then she says, "Where's the chair?" And they haven't mentioned the chair. And it was because they're a theatre touring group for kids, so like educational theatre. And this chair was for Scrooge during Christmas Carol, and it was upstairs in the loft. And they said it's upstairs in the loft. So she placed them in a circle of salt and said, "Don't step out. I'm going to walk. I'm going to go to this chair." And she was gone so long that the girl Claire said, "I'm going to go and see where she is." But before she could, she come downstairs, and she said, "Right, that chair's got death attached to it. The woman's still not leaving. What I can do is I need you to come to the loft with me. We're going to bind her to that chair, and I'll come back in whenever." She's still not back, interestingly, and this is 9 years old at least. But this chair's still there. So it's she basically got them in the attic. She put them in a protective circle of salt. Then she put a circle of salt around the chair, drew symbols in it. Now Claire says, and this is again one of these validators for me, it wasn't like mystical symbols. It was like geometrical shapes, just in the sand, in the salt.
Yeah.
And she's, after like mumbling things in a low voice, she turns to the family and says that she's now bound to the chair. You'll have no more bother from her, but you can never address the chair. Don't speak to the chair. Don't cross that boundary of salt, and you'll be fine. And then in a few months' time, but as I say, it's been 9 years and it's still there. I'll come back and see if she's ready to move on. And left it like that. And Claire says if she goes to the loft to get like bags or whatever, or Christmas lights, she just doesn't look in that direction. And I made a passing reference. Oh, I might ask, because I know it's still there, if I can have this chair. About 20 people emailed me and saying, don't. And like one even said it would be disrespectful. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. But I then did think, why would I want this chair?
Because something happened to someone you loved and you thought that was that chair, even if you were wrong.
Exactly. Well, I'm more and more now realizing what we're referring to is not necessarily in that case, and there are always going to be discrepancies. But in the last year, my belief system's kind of expanded massively. And what's that? The Dunning-Kruger effect. Where you're confident.
The more you know, the less you know.
Yeah, so you start really confident because you know X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I know.
And you think you're the expert in this field. And then you go into the valley of stupidity because you realize you know nothing. And then slowly you plateau up and learn more. And it's not that last year I thought I knew everything. It's just
you were more confident.
I'm more confident in what I don't know, as in like to admit I don't know. But also in terms of, I do think arguably maybe 70% of what I would have always classed as supernatural is natural. It's just we will never understand how it works.
Yeah. I don't know if time slips will come out in modern science. That time is overlapping and it's not as wacky as we think it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you think about X-rays, being able to see into someone's body, that's pretty wacky.
Yeah.
But we don't freak out about it because everyone tells you, no, it's all right, it's normal. It's not normal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Weird.
And it's the same with like as fact, and somebody does a stand-up routine about it. It's really good, but it is fact. Like if you knock on a wooden table, molecules from you have gone into the table,
Yeah.
and molecules from the table have gone into you,
Yeah.
and then that does make it that. See, now that is something I do find fascinating because, again, like I used to do psychometry, like when I was 16,
Right.
for a period of about, I was 15, sorry, for a period of about 4 years. And it started with a game with my mother from the News of the World, Mystic Meg, of all
Yeah.
people, suggested doing it and how to do it. And I got my mum's wedding ring, closed my eyes, and I described exactly where she was, colour of the walls, on the morning of a wedding, who she was with, to the point of even, I can still picture it now vividly. It was a small box room. There was a window which was small anyway, but I had a massive mirror in front of it, which meant you could only see the corners out of the window. And she had me Auntie Kitty to one side and Auntie Sheila to the other. And the walls were green. And I was describing, and when I opened my eyes, she was like, everything you just said was the morning of my wedding. So I thought, oh, well, maybe there's something in this. And then I'd do it as like a party trick. And what I used to do was get somebody's jewelry normally. And I'd tell them the colour of the carpets. If that was, I'd go, okay, let me go in your house. And I'd close my eyes and I'd be like, okay. So have you got a brown door? Yeah, okay. Great carpet. Then you turn, no, you don't turn right. You go left and slam it. And they'd be like, and I could do this to 95% success, It was like, it was weird. Like, even to the point, I remember one specifically going, you've got a parrot. And they were like, how do you know that? And I was like,
You
because,
knew that.
yeah, I was like, it's in the corner. Like, I can see the cage. I said, a typical bird cage. And they went, it's not in a cage, it's in a thingy. I said, I don't know, it might well be. I said, but I'm seeing a bird cage. And then I stopped for a specific reason because that's how it was. It was all fun and games, fun and games, fun and games. Then my mum passed away when I turned 16. I went a bit, when I say off the rails, I don't mean like as in mental,
You're going
but
to be shook, aren't you?
yeah, exactly. And I started drinking a bit. And the lady, because shops, as you know yourself, Chris, were different back then. You could smoke in shops and stuff. And the off license at the bottom of the road, I got very chatty with Eileen, the woman who worked in there. And she knew I was underage, but she would sell me quarter bottles of vodka and Sunny Delight and allow me to go in their toilet and mix them. So I had one big bottle of very, very translucent Sunny Delight. And this is like 2 in, and I'd sit there getting pissed and smoking as the customers are coming in. And we get talking one day about psychometry, like and stuff, and I say, do you want to know the colour of your carpets? I'll freak you out. And then she went, no. She went, but I'll tell you what you can do. She goes out the back and she comes in. She goes, this watch always runs 5 minutes fast. She said, we can take it back 5 minutes. The next day, it'll be 5 minutes fast. She said, no one, we took it to jewelers, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay. She went, tell me what you get from that. But it was like, the way she said it was like very, not suspicious.
Loaded.
Yeah, loaded. Good way of putting it. So she gives me this thing. Now, normally when I would used to do it and I'd have these visions, they were always first person. They were always me walking through the house and looking around and, everything was in colour, fine. This was completely different. I remember vividly holding this watch in my hand, close my eyes, and there was a series, and I've never experienced anything like it, a series of like quick flash, black and white, every one of them black and white images running through my brain. And I like to the point where I opened my eyes and went, what is this? And she was like, why? And I went, no, I'm just saying. She went, it's just a watch. So carried on. I was like, okay. I said, I'm not liking this at all. Like physically felt sick. Then the images slowed down. And I was in this house, which has never happened in any sort of attempt at doing this. I was in this house. I had hold of the flex from the Hoover. And I was looking up at the banister and trying to figure out how to make a noose. Then it's shot to me being behind some bushes. And through the bushes, I could see a bus stop. And over a dual carriageway, I could see this kind of... Now, it sounds weird to say this, but I knew it was a red, sandy brick building, even though it was black and white. And I was in a clearing. But I'm saying all this out loud to her. So I'm saying, I'm in ours. I'm holding a Hoover Flex. I'm looking up at the banister. Now I'm in a clearing. You know, I can see a bus stop through the bushes. There's a dual carriageway. I think it's a red brick building. But then I think it just repeated that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like I said, it keeps just doing that. And then in the end, I just shook my head and opened my eyes, and she was crying.
Right.
And I was like, "Are you okay?" She was like, "Give me the watch." She took the watch. She went out the back, come back out after composing herself, and she was like, "That was my brother's. I can't remember his name. That was my brother's watch. He hung himself with the flex of a Hoover, in front of the Imperial Metals building, on these slanks or off these slanks, and." At the time, there was no mobile phones, and there probably were, but they weren't. You
Common,
know,
yeah.
yeah, and they also didn't have Google Maps or anything like that.
Mm.
Um, and I was like, "Shut up!" I said, "I'm so sorry." Like, and it dawned on me the fragility of because I said, "Do you want to know the color of your carpets?"
Yeah.
And she decided, "No, I want you to tell me about me deceased brother." So it's not my fault, but it dawned on me the fragility of people mourning. But it was so strange because I then went past. I needed to find this place, and turns out it was just around the corner from where I worked. And I went past. I got a different bus that I knew went up that road, and I seen this bus stop on the other side of the road, and I was on the top deck, and I could see over this initial hedge, which was behind the bus stop, and I could see this clearing,
Mm.
and to the left of me was this building, and it was red, and it was exactly how I'd seen it, and I've never been more scared of something. The closest I've got to it was when I accidentally astrally projected, but I've never been more scared of anything in my life, genuinely. And since then, I stopped it. I tried it again when I was 25, didn't work, and thought I'm not going to do it again. I tried it when I was
You closed it
30.
off, though, haven't you? You'd,
Yeah,
you'd
yeah, yeah,
gone, no thanks.
yeah. I tried it when I was 30 and thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go because someone in work just said, "My mother gave me this. If you get her name right, I'll give you a fiver." And I was like, "Well, I could do with a fiver. I'll try." Um, and the name was Janeth, and I got it. Bizarrely, I literally went, "It's I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm looking at her when I'm saying this, so it could have been now completely natural and like NLP or whatever that I don't know. If I'm going Jin, she's like judging her eye movements or whatever. But I went, "It's not Janet, it's Janeth." I said, "And I don't even think that's a name." And she grabbed it off me and went, "It is a bloody name." And she was like, "Here's your fiver." And I said, "I don't want it." I said, "I'm freaked out
Yeah.
myself." And I haven't done it since.
So the way
Yeah.
that you could do that and the way that I can brings me to where I am with my team at the moment. There were three of us the other night, and this year we normally start with protection, but we've
Yeah.
said let's do a year without it. Let's just see the difference, or if activity is better or worse or absolutely makes no difference, in which case we'll drop it. We only started protection because you copy what people do,
Of
and
course, yeah.
for 14 years we just did it. Right, so now we're like, I don't think it matters, so we didn't do it. So it's a case of let's all sat down. I'm talking like before our chat here. We're sort of talking freely, and there's a moment where you're like, okay, now we're switching on.
Yes.
No, normally protection is that way we switch on. I'm like, right, let's start. Everyone link hands. We're going to do protection. Now, without that, you're talking away. Okay, let's begin. Spirits, are you there? It's too abrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, we need something to decide mentally. Right, we've started.
Yeah. Get
So
in
I
the
said, what we're
zone.
going to do, we're going to kind of do a hypnosis thing. We're just going to free our mind. Now, I'm very much visual in my head. I've got my teammate Jill and my sister Becky, who's on the team. Jill, I know, always had problems with protection because she goes, I can't picture it. I just can't picture this white light covering us all.
Yeah.
I've always struggled. And eventually, we were investigating and she saw a white dress. And I says, why don't you imagine getting that white dress on instead then? When we do protection, as long as you go through a mental thing of putting a armour on,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll call that you're protected. Again, down to what you're putting out.
Belief.
Yeah, we mentioned the word earlier.
Intent.
Begins with I. Intent. I says it's the intent switching on. Now, my sister. So I go through this. Imagine this cloudy. Okay, Jill probably can't do it, but imagine this cloudy thing. I want to see who comes out of the clouds at you, and then we'll later on in the Ouija board. It might be like that. You did say a guy. You did say an old guy with a cap. And once we've done an hour of talking to this guy who comes through later, it's an old guy in a cap. Wow, cool.
And are any of the guys? Sorry to interrupt, Chris. Are any of the guys within the team claiming any sort of clairvoyance
No
abilities? No.
We're all like, no.
Yeah.
So Jill can't imagine it, and afterwards, me saying, "Oh, I got some people, some images." My sister's like, "I didn't see anything. I can't picture things in my head." And I said, "You've got what she's got, where you can't. It's called aphantasia. Have you heard of that? Yeah."
I didn't know it had a name. I've heard of people being unable to visualize, though. Yeah.
It was popular a couple of years ago with the apple test. If I say to you, "Picture an apple," do you see it black and white? Do you see an apple? Do you see it green? If I say picture a green apple, what do you see?
Yeah. Oh, I see a green apple. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So do I. And so I says, "What do you mean you don't see things? You couldn't picture it?" So like when I do, she's like, "When you do protection, I can never see anything." I'm like, "What? Even the part when I'm like, and zoom the camera back, and then we're all in a globe?" And she's like, "Oh no, I just thought, you were sort of saying it." I'm like, "No, I'm describing what I'm seeing, and I thought you also saw."
Yeah, I thought you were with me.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh no, I'm just letting you like go through the motions of saying it." So yeah, I found out 2 of my team can't picture these things, which is quite interesting because me and another teammate, Lucy, are very visual in our head. You can have crazy visuals, memories. I can replay things in my head, very clearly.
Yeah.
So there's that difference in what you expect. You all think you're all the same, don't you? So what I'm getting around to here is some people see nothing. Some people are like me and you. Some people might see spirits.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hang on. Maybe there is a link. My sister saying she can see nothing is just as amazing to me as someone saying they can see spirits that I can't see.
Yeah. And who's to say that when you're saying you've seen some faces yourself, who's to say they're not spirits themselves?
Yeah, well, that was my point. That of course I can invent things in my head. Of course I close my eyes. I'm either going to say a man or a woman.
Yeah.
But I just wanted, that wasn't going to be enough. It was going to be like if the Ouija board agreed, and of course then you might come in and say, "Yeah, but Chris, of course you're contacting that guy you thought of."
But I am of the opinion in terms of the demoter now. My opinion's kind of set on, like I said earlier, we're the tool. It's up to, and there could be a point where there's no spirits around and your subconscious is driving the train. But I do think there's a lot of occasions where the collective unconscious around the board, one thing is controlling everyone. So it is the demoter effect, but you're not driving.
When I say to the spirits, "What brought you here?" they say the light that you're giving off.
Interesting.
The switch on. When I'm sat here, apparently we do have colours, and spirits tell us the colours.
Yeah.
What we give off. Oh, that's another. I must have had this conversation with you in the last chats. But anyway, we'll concentrate on the light. They say we come towards the light. We saw your light, and we're drawn towards it because they're in this like what you would call heaven, their existing plane. There is a light, and then in between there's darkness. I suppose it's like being on the moon. There's a glow. Glow's a bad word. There's a blackness in between where spirits can see our light and go towards it. Moth to a flame.
Yeah.
So when we used to do an old place regularly, I often get the same spirit coming through saying, "What do you want?" You pulled me here with your light, and I'm like, "Sorry."
Yeah.
And it's pissed off. It's like, I'm minding my own business, and you doing this brought me here, and what do you want?
The interesting thing is that the implication is the light was like a magnet, because otherwise it's their curiosity that brought them, not you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is an energy source, and obviously they don't have the thermodynamics to create, eat to get energy. They have to suck it from batteries and power sources.
Out of interest, is it you specifically when you do these group ones, or is it the group collectively, light-wise?
All of us together collectively.
Okay.
That's the whole linking hands,
Yeah.
forming. We're all. I do think of it like, just a way of focusing.
Yeah.
Right, we're all going to forget our jobs. We're all coming together to talk to spirit. Let's all get on a level playing field. We're noticing the noises and the temperature in this room before we start.
Yeah.
We're noticing any drafts with the 10 minutes we've led up to this point. So that now when the temperature drops or the equipment starts to fuzz, you're like, well, it's not done that for the last 10, 20 minutes.
Yes. So you've got a baseline sort
You've got a baseline. I find the baseline so important. If you don't have a baseline,
Yeah.
what
are you doing?
For?
Yeah.
Um,
But your investigations do seem to be, out of the majority of people that I see, yours are very one thorough, but also two. What's really good about how you go about it is, and it may not be for everyone in the group, but for yourself, it seems to be, I'm going to do this investigation, and the outcome of the investigation is almost irrelevant in terms of your reaction to it. You could be, if nothing happens, you kind of as equally satisfied that you found that out as you are as if something happens. It's more about the investigative part, which is really, it's noble, really. That a lot of groups, if nothing happens, they're not writing anything down. They're just throwing it away. They just go, nothing happened. I'll write it down if something happens. And you don't seem to do that. You log and categorize, and
I see it all as a data point, and I'm drawing pictures over 14 years, stabbing every time. When you zoom out and see 14 years of dots, what is the pattern?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's times when it is unbelievably clear on a Saturday night. We are talking with whatever, but we are talking with something beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
Getting answers to questions and predictions and all sorts of weird stuff. But then obviously we've also got the much more nights where the board is moving and it's making no words whatsoever.
Yes.
And it's like something is here, but I'm sorry, Spirit, and then Spirit 2, and then Spirit 3. None of you are making sense.
Yeah.
It can move to yes and no, but try and spell something and it's pulling teeth. And I'm like, I see you, I thank you for trying. Is it us? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Is there something we can do about this? No. So I wonder if it's like me having a walkie, you having a walkie, and we're either too far away, there's too much concrete between us.
Yeah.
Whereas on other nights, when you're holding up those TV aerials in your bedroom to try and get a better reception, it very much determines on that reception, I think.
Yeah, it also could be, going back to the walkie-talkie analogy, it could be a case of you're succinctly asking a question into your walkie-talkie. They can just about hear your question. They're trying to respond. Gobbledygook's coming through, so they end up pressing that beepy button, which makes no sense on your end.
Yeah.
But But the act of the movement is a sign there's something there. It's kind of like, I'm here. Like, I don't know, like a. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but none's coming to mind. But you get the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, it's hard to prove, and like you say, ours isn't for an audience. Ours is for us.
Yeah, for data.
For data. Yeah, and we all then, it's an amalgamation of, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Whenever it doesn't move, we're like, we're not sat here moving it.
Yeah.
We want it to move,
And it's not. Well, which could argue, that's an interesting thing in itself, because you could argue that could prove something is there, because if it's stopped the ideomotor effect, that's as much proof as it starting the ideomotor effect.
Nobody wants it to move more than the people sat at a table.
Oh God, yeah.
A month. Do you know what I mean? It's we went to a graveyard hoping to pick up on a spirit we'd met ages before. Very, very rare we go for a spirit. It's like whoever wants to come in.
Yeah.
Because you could have a pretender. You go looking for Rachel. Yeah. Anything can say it's Rachel. So you don't do that. But anyway, we went to this spirit in a cemetery. And they were there. They came to say, no, not tonight, guys. It just kept going to them goodbye. And I'm like, what's wrong? And it was like, no, just went, not tonight. Go home.
Well,
and so we literally had to go, well, what's the point? What's the point
Yeah,
then? We went home because they just weren't going to have it.
you should have said when.
Yeah, when
When's
can I
a good
come
time
back?
back?
Yeah.
But
Well,
we
it's
had
like
an
they were
interest. Sorry,
having a
go on.
meeting. Just like they were having a meeting, like, no, not tonight, we're busy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I bought only just through fascination with them in terms of how I've seen them react on Ghost Hunter shows. I mean, the living room that is no longer my dad's is mine. He'd absolutely batter me if you could see how I've got it. So I've got three objects in the living room that I've set up purposefully that could go off at all manual objects, none of them are electronic, that
Yeah.
could go off at any time. So, for example, um, it's meant to be an art thing, but it's in the mantelpiece. I've ripped his fire out, made it look like a natural fire thing. But it's like it's a pendulum that drops down to a big silver pendulum, and the point of it is you get it to a certain level, and there's sand, and then you move it, and it draws geometric patterns in the sand.
Oh, nice.
But I just leave it stationary, and also I've got a Newton's cradle on the
Yeah.
coffee table because I know then if I'm talking to you now and that
Mm.
pendulum starts moving or
Yeah.
that starts clacking away,
Yeah.
there's nothing. I mean, it's a heavy Newton's cradle. That's a heavy pendulum. There's no breeze in here. So
Mm.
I like to do things like that. So I bought a spirit box anyway, the PSB1 or something. Uh,
SB7.
Possibly, mate. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's next to me laser thermometer.
Okay. I'll let you
Um,
finish.
but basically, it just as the all our radio scanners, picky milliseconds,
Yep.
backwards, forwards, that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. And it's never produced anything. But one time, me and a girl I was seeing at the time was sat here, and we just had a Domino's, not relevant, but just factual. And she's also interested in otherworldly things. And I said, I just bought this. Should we give it a go? So we did. Now, interestingly, on FM, I don't like doing FM anyway because there's a
Too busy.
station every 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and you're not going to get anything. On is it longwave or whatever the other one is?
AM. Yeah.
AM, sorry, yeah. That's much better. Anyway, what we noticed, which is the first time it's actually scared me in terms of I can't explain that, is as it ran through the stations, and you know how broad the stations are.
Mm.
Um, same male voice was at the start, at the middle, and at the end, and there's no possible way
Yeah. It
unless
shouldn't be. Yeah.
there shouldn't be a possible way.
No.
Um, and she was hearing a female voice underneath it, which I couldn't hear, which was
Right.
interesting because again, getting back to things we at a very, very basic human level, although we could read how it works and go, oh, that makes sense, it's still mind blowing when you see it. It's like that. Have you ever done that? Found the video on YouTube with the sound for teenagers?
What we can't hear and they
We
can.
can't hear and they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Becca, there was a 10-year difference between me and Becca,
Yeah. But you
and
can hear it.
I started going out with her when I was 32, so she was
Yeah.
22. And we started living together when I was about 34. She was 24. At about 38, she's 28. So, and she's never, I mean, I was in a band and I listened to nothing but music. There's something in my ears all the time.
Mm.
So my hearing must be kaput anyway. But she doesn't. She doesn't like loud noises, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm upstairs, not even headphones, listening through just the laptop. And I put this video on and I'm like, I can't believe this has had 4 million views because there's
nothing there.
there's nothing there. And from downstairs, she shouts, "Whatever that is, turn it off now!" And I'm like,
wow.
I stopped it and went, "Are you joking?" So I found it on my phone and I come down, and I'm blown away by this. So I'm downstairs with it. I'm like, "Turn you back." I said, "And tell me when I've got it on." And I'm waiting, and I'm like, "Now."
Yeah.
I was like, "This is insane." Because it kind of proves again, even with the realm of hearing, there are levels of what people can hear and what people can't.
Yeah.
And if we know that as scientific fact based on age, then when people say, oh, when you start to have dementia, for example, and you start to see things and whatever else, we go, that's you hallucinating. Is it?
Yes.
Well, you could say Becca was hallucinating the sound. But coincidentally, it was when I stopped and started the fucking sound. Oh, sorry, the sound.
That's right.
So, you know, we can explain that because people have looked into it. No scientist is looking into the dementia, visualizing spirits sort of realm, which is a common thing.
Yeah. It's like colour blindness, isn't it? My mate's colour blind. And again, you're like, are you? You know,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can
Yeah,
see things I can't see. It just sounds bizarre.
yeah, yeah. I had a mate who got told off in school for drawing a brown Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And again, to him, that's how he saw Christmas trees.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
his, and that's the other thing about, like, your own universe, your own reality. In his
Yeah.
reality, that's a Christmas tree. So he's
Yeah.
not wrong.
I
But
learned that reading a book called Biocentrism about nobody sees the same rainbow. If you and I are stood next to each other, the water droplets causing that rainbow from that angle and that angle are completely different moisture.
wow,
You know? So everyone's like, that rainbow. It's like, I don't know, I'm looking at a different one. You think
wow,
about it, it makes sense. It's not a
it does,
bar, is
yeah,
it? It's a mist of many
yeah,
particles.
yeah. And I think this is something that's really, I, I mean, this isn't paranormal, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I'm really I'm reaching after the last 12 months, as I say, lost my dad, split up from a 13-year relationship, a lot
Mm.
of change, and obviously moved house. And if you look up the three top stresses, it's the loss of a loved one, breaking up a relationship, moving house. And like, oh, I've
Yeah.
had 11, 12 months. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I've been looking for, like, sort of paradigm shifts in how I view the world. Stuff I can take solace in terms of, yeah, just how I view the world, to try and, like, be relaxed and stuff like that. And there's a guy, a gentleman, I call him a gentleman philosopher. I believe he's dead now, Alan Watts. Um, and I think there's definitely an audiobook and Audible about him, with all of his lectures on. I think he spanned, like, late 60s, early 70s, or maybe mid 70s. But there's a period where he kind of talks like Austin Powers, like he's like, you've just got to feel the vibe, baby, as he's doing these lectures and stuff. But I seen a video of him the other day, and I thought that I love these little snippets of, like, wow, when something just gets you, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa. And he was saying, he sat on the wall, big beard, and he's like, it's when people say, like, really well spoken, and he's
Mm.
like, it's when people say, I really can't force myself to dry and wash these dishes. He says, you never have to wash and dry dishes. You have one dish, because you only have the present moment. He said, it's impossible for you to wash all of the dishes in one time because you're not an octopus. And he's like, so you only ever have to wash one dish. So why not make it into a dance? And he's like, and he's basically taking something negative and being
Mm.
very truthful. Like, you can only exist in the present moment. So
Yeah.
at the time, you can only wash one dish. So he's like, you wash the one dish, you sing a song, you dry it, you put it away. Oh, you've got one dish to wash. And,
Mm.
like, you get the next dish. And it was it hasn't yet sank into me in terms of, I just know that there's something in what he's saying,
Something in it, yeah.
which is really, like, fundamentally perceptually changing in
Yeah.
how I view things. But it's not yet hit home. But I
Mm.
knew that what he was saying was right, because it is right.
Yeah. I was saying to my son, I was trying to make sure that he didn't have the anxieties that I had at his age,
Yeah,
which he doesn't. And I'm like, me saying to you, as if you were the young me, I'm saying, don't worry, you're so insignificant. Whatever you do doesn't matter. And I
yeah,
said, just take it from me. You make absolutely no difference to the universe.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And he's like, oh, thanks,
Yeah.
Dad.
But interestingly, that's Alan Watts' entire philosophy.
Yeah,
But his argument is, as opposed to that being almost like a Nietzschean negative,
yeah,
it's like that's the point. The
yeah,
point is, it doesn't matter. So why not
mm,
enjoy every moment of it not mattering,
mm,
and dance and sing and don't care what people think and
yeah.
all this? Because interestingly, when tying into that, I know we're going a bit off topic now, so I'll
It's a
stop
chat,
at
Kev.
this
We're
point.
just chatting. It's fine.
Yeah, but my nan, when she was 88, before she died of dementia, funny enough, about 6 years later, well, a heart attack, but um, when she was still lucid, I said to her when she was about 88, "What do you regret?" And it wasn't like a morbid sort of thing. because she was an Irish nan. She was forever saying, "I won't be here next year anyway." She said that for about 20 years.
Yeah.
But she said, "You know, the one thing I wish I could go back and never do," and she said it was care about what people think of me. She went, "Because you know, when you get to my age," she said, "they're all dead, or you don't see them again." She went, "And I spent so much of my life worried about what other people would think about what I'd done, who I was with, where I was going." She went, "And now I'm really angry at myself that I'd done that."
Yeah.
And it really hit home. And I was like, I'm made up I asked you that question, because I think of that, not daily, but to use for a bad example, I was working at a place at the time, ordered a shirt because we were going on a works night out. It arrived, soft shite here, didn't open the package, just took it to work thinking I'll put it on before we go. Opened it, it was the wrong shirt. This was like, there was a character for EastEnders, Alfie Moon, who used to wear these outrageous shirts. This was an Alfie Moon shirt. I'd ordered a white one. And I remember standing in the toilets in work thinking, I can't go out like this. Because this was a rough part of Liverpool where I worked, and it was a rough crowd. And I thought, if I walk out like this, and I remembered my nan's words, and I thought, why am I bothered? And I just put it on, tucked it in, and walked out. And yeah, people were ripping their back out of me as I was walking. But I just turned around and went, I know. And you know, once it was a case of, I know, I should have checked the package. I didn't, but I want to go out. And it's sort of like disarmed everyone. You know, when you just go, I know it's shit. I look like a knobhead.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, we were going to say that.
Yeah. Don't work then, does it?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So
I think we've looped around to you. You kind of create your own universe from what's in your head. You know, everything's in energy, and we live in that energy. Like, you could talk to me, and if I feel down, it changes this conversation. Whereas if you talk to me and I'm happy, I've changed our conversation. You know, you affect the world around you, don't you?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
You know, and I think to some degree you can fake it until you make it. I could make you think I'm all right, and that's enough to change our connection.
Yes, completely. And there's kind of, I'm like sort of evidential to that in terms of, I've just talked then about how you disarm people by, you know, saying to them what they were going to say to you.
Yeah.
And that used to be a tactic me and a friend of mine had when we'd go out. And what we'd do is we'd self-deprecate if we were in front of a group of people we didn't know. And automatically everyone loved us because
It's charming.
It's charming because, you know, because we'd walk in and we'd dress differently than other people, and we'd walk in with spiked hair or whatever, and ready, you know, like prime, ready to be bullied people in a pub. But we'd walk in and
Suave get you.
Well, there you go. That's the exact sort of thing you get. But we'd walk in and say, in that situation, the suavest people in the room have arrived. You can stop skitting us now. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But interestingly, we've done it so often that, especially with me, I see a therapist every so often, and he's like, that part where you've done that for like 4 or 5 years consistently, like the social anxiety you ended up with and the other things that have come your way, a lot of that's down to you believing your own self-deprecation. Because whenever you meet someone new, your instant go-to is to put yourself down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never thought of it like that. He said, and it may have worked in your 20s. He said, but you're in your 40s now. So when you meet someone new, when you meet someone new and they go, hiya, how are you? And you go, I'm a knobhead. They're like,
okay. You're meant to have it sorted out, mate.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly, yeah. And it's endlessly fascinating. But now we're getting into philosophy for the last 20 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've kept you an hour and a quarter already. We haven't even got to our investigations. I'm going to hang on to these or do something else next time.
No, well, we'll do it again if you want. I'm free.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of dates next month if you want to do a catch up and do another one.
All right. Well, cool. It's been a good chat. So I'll put all links to Kevin's stuff in the description, and we'll dig into something a bit more on topic next time. Cheers.
Yeah, apologies for not keeping this on topic. Sorry, guys.